Ms. Blackburn for 5 minutes for asking questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Woodcock, or Dr. Woodcock, you are so patient to come to us regularly, and we do appreciate it because we're so interested in making certain that things that are supposed to be done are tended to. As Chairman Upton mentioned, 21st Century Cures, the implementation there, of course, the Children's Count Act, which I had that component. That is something that we're going to watch very closely. And so we do appreciate the updates. We know it takes a lot of time to come up here, but we are very appreciative. I just want to quickly look at the abuse deterrent opioids and the components that are there. The March 2016, you did the draft guidance. When is there going to be the final guidance on that? What is the expectation? And then I want to know, I know we've touched around the edges on this, but talk a little bit about the actions that can and should be taken from you all to advance the abuse deterrent opioids and to get these into the marketplace. Just a little bit there, and that is really my only two questions.
Certainly. Well, as far as the guidance, it's very difficult ever to give a firm date certain when a final is going to come out.
Just an expectation or a timeline.
Well, let me just assure you that we're putting a great effort into this because really what we need to do, we think, is incentivize innovator development of various abuse deterrent formulations. The current ones, as we've already discussed, are kind of version 1.0, and surely we can do better, right? And so there has to be probably some incentives there, and then generics, we need a pathway so that the generics understand what they would do to show that they are exactly the same as the innovator, because uptake of these abuse deterrent formulations is lower because there are a lot of old opioids on the market that are very inexpensive, that are not abuse deterrent. And that is often for health systems the preferred opioid to use to save money. So we need a progression of incentives and also a clear pathway. But the innovation needs to go from the innovators, the people who are out there trying to figure out better ways to deter abuse.
Right, but are we talking 6 months, a year? I mean, when do you think there will be a
final guidance for the generic?
Yeah.
I would hope within 6 months. I certainly would.
That's great. And then if you'll speak just a little bit toward what further the FDA can do to spur the abuse deterrent opioids.
You know, there are many things we are trying to do. One of them, though, is trying to incentivize development of drugs, new drugs, that don't have these abuse liabilities to treat pain. And we have approved a number of them. They're often for specific conditions. For example, we approved one for neuropathic pain, and that's now being used by the neurologists, those drugs, instead of opioids, because opioids aren't very good for neuropathic pain. So that cuts out one category of people getting these opioids. So if we want to stimulate, and we've been working on this for years with the outside world, scientific world, trying to stimulate the development of drugs that aren't opioids, that don't have these abuse liabilities, because people are going to continue prescribing opioids for people in pain unless they have something else to offer. So also we have workshops, and we work on abuse deterrent formulations to try and stimulate and work with innovators on new ways to deter abuse.
Gentlelady yields back. Mr. Butterfield's recognized for 5 minutes for questions.